The war god took the man and put him in the Garden of Eden to work it and keep it.
Hi, welcome Eden family to episode number 3 of Building the Ark, which is just about our family budget. Today we're going to be talking about living below our means. We truly do. We didn't bring a ton of math, but we did bring a little bit just to kind of show like what we mean by that, right? Do you want to start with the practical, the house portion of it, or no? You want me to start? He's like, no. Okay, so we do have, I do think there is a foundational scripture. There are so many that we could talk about. But let's talk about the practical first, just to like switch stuff up. So one of the very practical ways that we truly live below our means is our house versus income, right? So if you've ever had to look resources up, or thinking about getting a mortgage and kind of started reading articles, the industry standard really is 25%. So experts say that, hey, we would not recommend you, like basically your mortgage and or rent should only be 25% of your income. And ours is 12%. Did you want to talk a little bit about that or just add to that?
No, I mean, I would just, small thing. We did have a down payment though. So that does
True.
help with the remaining. But no, other than that, I'll let you take it.
Yeah. I think the one episode where we talked about kind of like the do's and don'ts when getting a mortgage would also be good. We do have, because we talked a lot about like, hey, no, regardless of what you're making, go in telling the bank how much you're going to afford. So I do think there's some wisdom there also, but we have a whole separate podcast for that. All right. So shopping, can you talk about shopping? Is it existent?
Yeah, I think we started, we teach the personal allowance, and our personal allowance, as y'all know, we started with $75 a check. Was it a check or was it every week?
A week. So $150 a check.
So $150, okay, so $150 a check. And that was up until COVID happened. When COVID happened, we came home, and really you had your personal allowance because when you're going out, like I said, you do treat yourself to Starbucks or whatever as you're out and about at work. But once we came home, our personal allowance kind of went away. So now that $300 is staying within our savings or whatnot. And just like we talked about last week of being content. And you guys also know that we talk about the lifestyle change, and that's where this comes in too, because you once been content, and then you get into you just getting things for the true necessity of it, like clothing. It's not a fashion. It's not I want to be wearing a $5,000 watch or be wearing anything like that. Like, I just need to tell time. So clothes, I just need something so the police don't get me when I walk out or go to the store. I need to I just need to cover my body. And just like a car, I don't need to drive a $1 million car. I just need to get from point A to point B, something with 4 wheels that is reliable. And so that's where all of that comes in, and just, we do treat ourselves. So with that savings and like that money coming back in, there are moments where it's like, every 6 months or 5 months, or we do see something. Oh yeah, it doesn't, because you're saving so much on one end, it's okay to take $100, $200 or whatever and go buy some clothes, because it's like, well, we saved $5,000 on the other end, so what is it to take a few hundred here and go buy some things? So that's where. And like I said, the main thing is like, it's just a whole lifestyle change. And that's really where, like I said, from clothing to cars to jewelry or whatever, whatever it is, your mindset just change on it of like, I don't need to be fashionable with it, or I don't need the most expensive or the new thing. I just need it to do what it's supposed to do when I need it. So that's how I think about when it comes to the living within your means or living below your means or whatnot, and that's how we do it. So I don't know if you want to.
So I feel like our shopping is extremely minimal. You and I, just transparently, I feel are super cheap. And I can't remember, like, have I always been that way?
We'd say so.
I don't know, maybe. But I feel like just on this journey of wanting to save, wanting to owe no one anything, when you start to see that progress, it's like, all right, like, I just want to throw everything towards that. And that makes me cheaper in a way.
Well, I wouldn't say that we're cheap. I think we just rather spend our money in other areas. Vacations. Like, we would rather spend less here so that we could go. We like to create moments. Something for our kids or something with family. Now, we will go get a cabin or go, you know what I'm saying? When we go vacation, it's not in a hotel room. You know, like we are. So that's the trade-off. It's like, okay, how can we cut or do something less in one area so that we really get to do the things that we enjoy? Because again, like I said, these things I don't enjoy. You know, it's not fun to me or whatever. But what is enjoyable or what is fun is like, okay, I would rather take the money from this and put it there. So that's how I see it.
I think,
or like I said, not to call us cheap. It's just
I'm cheap. Listen,
I don't care too much for it.
I'm cheap. I think I'm cheap, and it's fine. I'm okay like saying it like that because I think it's the truth. I also think though, if you flip that, I don't think there's anything wrong with it, because you might have people who say, well, I don't really care for the vacations. I actually do care. Like maybe they go in office every single day and they feel better when they look better, right? Like I've heard people say that. And so I would just say for you folks out there that there's nothing wrong with that either, right? It's not about really preferences. It's about priorities and at the end of the day, budgeting, right? So with not just, again, we're talking about how we live below our means, but I think if we're specifically talking about at least trying to live within your means, it's capping those things, right? Having self-control with those things that even if I do like really nice clothes or if I do want to drive a really nice car, that you do it responsibly, right? So you can, it's completely different if, you know, you save up cash, let's just say 50% of a car price to go and have a reasonable car payment and have the car of your dreams. Like there's just a responsible way to do it. And I think, yes, I think we naturally are like, not naturally, I think God has helped us, but I'm saying we don't care too much for like the appearance things, the keeping up with culture things, you know, having the newest TV, having the newest phone, having the newest whatever it might be. That's just not how we roll. But to your point, the things that we say, okay, we do want to pursue that, or we do want to go there, right? Like we do it responsibly. And I think that's the main thing, right? Because to your point, we cut out so many like everyday expenses that when we do, you know, have our yearly, our anniversary, it's like, you always say this, right? And because I'm cheap, so I'm always like, maybe we don't need to order room service, and you're always like, babe, like we do this once a year, let's do it, right? And so what we are going to do an episode on that, but I think it's just doing it responsibly. I think that's the point that we want to drive home. Not that you can't like nice stuff. Do it responsibly within your budget and have goals, right? Because the nice stuff fades if we're being honest, right? So yeah, that's the other thing. And large purchases. So I feel that when we need to make a large purchase, it's not something that's like on a whim, right? Like it's not like I don't wake up one day and just like, babe, like I need to go get a new phone, right? It's literally something, and it's funny because I recently had to get a new phone, right? But it's talked about for so long before, just because one, it's like, okay, is it truly a necessity? And if so, what are the reasons? And then how much is it going to cost? How do we want to pay for it? Like, is this one thing where we just want to dish out all the money, or does it make sense to do a payment plan if there is no interest? Like, right? Like we literally, for something that most people would consider small, we take every expense, I think, pretty serious. And it is literally like a group effort. I mean, if not even clothes, I would say either one of us wake up one day and are just like, we're gonna go get clothes. And don't get me wrong, we're both hardworking people, right? Both bring in income. So there would be, I wouldn't say there's anything wrong with that if you were to wake up one day and just be like, you know what, I want to go buy clothes, like that would be fine, right? But I think just the way that we run our household, it's such a mutual thing. Like, hey, we haven't bought clothes in like 2 years. Should we, let's just go. Let's see what we can find for the family, right? Not that that's often. I think that's actually very rare, but usually it has been so long that both of us are like, yep, let's do it.
Yeah.
that sort of thing. And the last thing I quickly want to talk about is, so I believe we talked about contentment, right? Last episode. Now we're talking about living below our means, but the opportunity that this has given us in terms of paying down our debt, and really just setting up our family for success, right? Or not success. I don't like how that sounds, but for the things that God has called us to be, right? Like not slaves to debt, to really not be borrowers, like all the things, right? Is our budget never really changed, right? So we've gone through a series, because we're 6.5 years in at this point. Is that math right? But yeah, so that's how long we've been married. And so we've gone through several at this point. Thank God for this, right? But just like promotions and increases that truly, like, I don't deserve, you don't deserve. I mean, it is truly just God. But our finances have just, our budget hasn't really changed, unless a true expense, like, okay, we had 2 babies, right? That makes sense. But I'm saying, like, apart from that, our spending doesn't go up. So just I wanted you to talk about the opportunity that provides, that when you have such a structure in place, right? And you kind of said this in one of the other episodes, any increase is really just extra, right? And it's not like, hey, you just got this promotion, right? Let's go spend and splurge, and now we can increase this here in the budget and that there in the budget. It definitely is like the budget is consistent. And if salary increases, the gap grows bigger. And I think that has really like helped position us. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, and just to add, like, yeah, we don't have promotions, but we also had layoffs. We also had furloughs. Sure. So it's like, you know, you have that up and down, and that's where we talked about last episode, being content, and we fall back, you know, when there's a time of furlough or there's a time of layoff, it's like, all right, freeze everything, you know, hey, we're about to be content, drop back, we don't know what's about to happen, so let's get our emergency fund and make sure, you know, until we see what happens. But like I always say, and like I said, we do with the clients, that when you first set up the budget, your expenses are going to be set up for the income that you're making at that time. We're going to put you in a position that, or you should put yourself in a position, you can do it yourself. Put yourself in a position that you're not living paycheck to paycheck off of what you're currently making and your current expenses. And if you're, like we talked about in another episode, if you have more expenses than income, you got to cut some things. You got to get out of the red and into the green. And so once you set that up, like we said, your budget is set up off of that income. So like we said, promotion, bonus, tax refund, anything extra that comes in should either help you pay off debt faster or boost your savings or emergency fund or whatnot. So, and that's what we talk about over the long term of it. Yeah, like you said, 2, 3, 4 promotions, but our expenses is still, you know what I'm saying, still the same. Or if you would have been aggressive in that season and in that time, you would have been paying off some things so that your expenses are getting even lower. Now you're creating an even wider gap. So you're throwing, either you're throwing a load towards whatever the next expense is, or you're building up your emergency fund or whatever. So I think that pretty much answered what you wanted, right?
I think it is a lie from hell that your expenses need to increase or can increase when your income increases. And the reason I say that is because now I wish I had it, but the statistics show that people who make more are not different than people who make less in terms of living paycheck to paycheck. And so what that tells you is, I know. I
just did it in a video.
Oh, you did? Okay.
I can't remember the percentage, but I did a 6 figures. People that made more than 6 figures.
It's okay.
I want to say 51%.
It was something in the 50s. Yep.
51%.
But there is no difference between people who make low income, right, and the percent, or mid, like low to mid, right? What percentage of that group is living paycheck to paycheck is almost identical to the people that make 6 figures living paycheck to paycheck. And so that goes back to, you know, this idea that if I make more, I can spend more. And we're here to just plead with you, please do not fall into that trap. There are people who make really, really good money that are in really, really big debt. And it's because now I feel that I can up my lifestyle because I make this, but it's like, hey, your debt is just mounting up. And so we don't have to live like this. And what we're saying is that it's possible not to live like that you can get those increases and just, God, thank you, right? And continue storing up, right? And let me go ahead and read our the scripture for today. So Proverbs 6:6-8. You guys have heard this before. Go to the ant, O sluggard, consider her ways and be wise. Without having any chief, officer, or ruler, she prepares her bread in summer and gathers her food in harvest. So again, this foundation, this idea of just storing up. And hey, to your point, right? The furloughs, the layoffs, like in those times, it was fine because we're always storing up, right? Paying off debts. Oh no. And to your point, if you can get those expenses down, it's almost the same as your income increasing, right? Because now you have less going out. So there's just a lot of ways to look at this, but again, not to promote and really to get away from the idea of spending more when you make more. That's a super worldly concept that we have to really fight against.
Yeah. And I would just say that like you were saying, as income goes up, it's natural for people to think, I can now go get a bigger house, or go get a bigger car, or go get whatever, a higher expense because I can afford it. And that's not what you want to do, and that's not what we do. I'm just talking about us, our experience. Once we paid cars off, we like, once we got the title, no more car payments. And we haven't had a car payment
for a long time.
Yeah, we haven't. And even moving forward, we're gonna use our cars to, even when it's time to go get another car, we plan to use these cars to help us purchase the next car in full, so that we still don't have a car payment. And again, positioning yourself so that you're not adding that expense back on again. Now you're lowering that gap for you. So yeah, that's just something else of once you, some of these things, whether it's a house, whether it's cars or whatever, once you get out of it, try not to get back into it. And again, if you do go get another car, put yourself in a position that you're not going to get a payment, but you're going to go pay it in full, and again, not have a payment as you move forward.
Yeah. So these are some of the ways that we truly live below our means. And again, the math, right? Which is why I'm saying below, rather than just within our means. But some of the other things that we're going to talk about is, I think next episode is childcare, but we're going to keep sharing, right? Like, hey, we do live below our means just from like a mathematical perspective. We talked about housing today, but we're also going to talk about some of the other ways that we kind of function within our household to stay below our means, coming up next. Yay!